As you look and see some of the programming that's going to come up, I can tell you that works, guest artists, themes of programs have come from musicians in our orchestra, from members of our staff, from members of our board. But it's my great responsibility and really great joy to then take all of these ideas and to pull them, bring them together in a way that makes not only the most sense, but the most excitement for a community. We wanted to do a couple of things. We wanted to celebrate the history of the orchestra. We wanted to think about the future of the orchestra. We wanted to do something extraordinary. We wanted to begin something that was new for us and an exciting project. We wanted to salute the individuals that had so much to do with the evolution and founding of this orchestra, and we wanted to salute the musicians who make up the orchestra. So just keep those items in mind as we start walking you through the season. We're going to talk today about the classics season and the pop season. We'll start looking through the season. The opening concert is going to happen on Tuesday night, September the 30th, and there is a nod to the first concert of the Portland Symphony, which 90 years ago, it was called the Strand Amateur Orchestra. This group that is now our incredible professional Portland Symphony Orchestra, but on their very first concert 90 years ago, the Strand Amateur Orchestra played Humoresque of Dvorak, along with several other works. In fact, some very light works and really some popular works of the time. But we wanted to have one piece on the concert that was from the very first performance of the Strand Orchestra. So that's the Dvorak Humoresque that you see. We're kicking off with the Shostakovich Festive Overture, which is just one of the most wonderful, wild rides for orchestra. It's hard to think of a more ebullient and energetic way to kick off a season than with the Shostakovich Festive. We're then having a work by Beethoven, and this is important. I'll go ahead and tell you about something you're going to see in a slide coming up. The Beethoven Fantasia, it's known as the Choral Fantasy, this work for piano, chorus, and orchestra. It requires a top-notch pianist, a wonderful chorus, and a great set of soloists as well. And we were able to do this piece because we have Henry Kramer, who is a native of Maine. Henry is a product of Maine, studied at Juilliard, and really fine pianist. So we're excited to bring him back. Beethoven is doing this piece, gives us a chance to sort of tell you what we're going to do starting this year for the next 3 years. So in the 2014-2015 season, in this season, we will perform 3 of the 9 Beethoven symphonies. We will do that again the following year and the following year, so that in a 3-year period, 2014-15, 15-16, and 16-17, the Portland Symphony, one orchestra, one conductor, will perform all 9 of the Beethoven symphonies. But this is our kickoff of what we are really thinking of as a Beethoven celebration. And there'll be lots of ancillary activities. We'll have a Beethoven focus on our discovery concerts for kids. We'll have Beethoven exhibits. We'll have a lot of information about Beethoven, especially this year. But you can look forward to hearing your Portland Symphony Orchestra play all 9 over the course of the coming 3 years. We're going to finish this opening concert with a piece that I am absolutely crazy about. And if you don't know the name, you will be crazy about it. I just promise you once you hear it. It is by the Czech composer Janacek, and it is called the Glagolitic Mass. Glagolitic just means Church Slavonic. So it just sort of represents the language that this Mass is in which it is sung. It's perfect for us for this opening because it calls for chorus. I love being able to use my cane as a pointer. It calls for chorus, soloist, very virtuosic for the orchestra, and it has a huge role for the organ. And when the Strand Amateur Orchestra started playing, there already, for about 12 years prior, was here in Portland this wonderful instrument called the Koczmar organ. You know, it celebrated its 100th anniversary just now coming up on 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and after the celebrations for the 100th, it left the building, as does Elvis. It left the building and went into 2 years of renovation, And Kathy Grammer is here with us from the Friends of the Kachmar Organ, and I asked Kathy if she might give us a quick update on what is happening over at FOCO and how this concert might tie in, because we want this to be a big part of the celebration of the return of the Kachmar organ. So, Kathy? I have said since I've been here, St. Louis has the Arch, Charleston has the Battery, Seattle has the Space Needle. We have the Kachmar organ, and we should be mighty proud of that instrument. It's really a cultural and artistic icon for us. So that's how we're kicking off the season. That's a single concert on Tuesday night. You will see that, as we have done the past few years, some of our concerts we have a Tuesday series, a Sunday series, and I want to specifically say that we are putting the 3 Beethoven symphonies on both series, and we're doing that by design, so both subscribers for Sunday or Tuesday Classics have that availability to hear the entire 9 Beethoven symphonies on their subscription series. So the next concert we do after that will be the opening Sunday concert. The opening Sunday concert will feature the gentleman you see pictured there. His name is Conrad Tao, and we're on a little bit of a theme with young pianists. I just talked to you about Henry Kramer. Conrad Tao is one of the pianists who is taking the world by storm at present. In this season or next season, he is making or will make his debuts with the Chicago Symphony, Los Angeles Philharmonic, London Symphony, New York Philharmonic. Actually, he and I, next fall, will make our debuts together with the Toronto Symphony. I first worked with Conrad 5 years ago when he was 14. So he is now 19, and he just, what I really am amazed by with regard to Conrad is the incredible maturity with which he plays. We know that teenagers, young players, can play with amazing virtuosity, technical ability. We've seen that, and of course he has that in spades. But beyond that, he plays with such a depth and maturity. He has been referred to and compared to a young Mozart because in addition to being a world-class pianist, he is also a world-class violinist. He tours and plays violin concertos and composers, and he has recently won several Morton Gould and ASCAP composition awards. So I'm really excited for you all to meet Conrad and get to know this incredible person and phenomenal musician. He's going to play the Grieg Piano Concerto, one of the great works in all the repertory. The opening of the concert is a work by Jennifer Higdon, and Jennifer Higdon is one of the great living American composers, and I was sort of searching around. We had some great conversations in our Artistic Advisory Committee meetings, and we realized that we, the Portland Symphony, along with most every orchestra in the country, typically don't program as many works as we should by female composers. And so we were specifically trying to find a great work, and I came across this piece of hers called Fanfare Ritmico, which really caught my ear, and was so happy to be able to put it on and program it. Musicians, and we'll talk to a musician of the orchestra soon, but musicians I often talk about which of the 15 Shostakovich symphonies is their favorite. I think the symphonies of Shostakovich are those that, Shostakovich symphonies, Mahler symphonies are the ones that players talk about that they really just, are sort of gnawing at the bit to play. And we've had a lot of great discussions about which one was the best one. And I think if you ask 15 musicians which of the 15 are the best, you'll get 15 answers. But we really came to rally around this great symphony of Shostakovich, his 12th symphony, which is just a powerhouse work for the orchestra. I'm excited that on our Tuesday opening and on our Sunday opening, we have works, the Janacek and the Shostakovich, that are going to really give you the sense of the power of the Portland Symphony Orchestra. And I think that's a really important statement to make as we kick off the seasons. So the next concert after that is the second Tuesday concert. And speaking of musicians of the orchestra, one thing that we like to do, and we get a lot of positive feedback from you, the audience, from our subscribers, people are always reinforcing to us how much they like it when our own members of the orchestra are featured as soloists. So just coming up, actually in next week, Lisa Hennessy, our principal flute, is playing the Khachaturian Flute Concerto. That's just a week from today. Last year, Charles Dimmick, our concertmaster, played a Mozart violin concerto. Laurie Kennedy has played a concerto with me, our principal violist. Janet Polk, our principal bassoonist, has played a concerto with me. So we were talking around this idea, and finally it crossed our minds to think, well, why salute one musician of the orchestra when you can instead salute 8 musicians of the orchestra? So we have an incredible piece for you. It's the Martin Concerto for 7 wind instruments, timpani, percussion, and strings. And so the 7 wind instruments and the timpanist, who is here, John Tanzer. I'll ask John to talk about the season in a bit. But those 8 instrumentalists will be featured as the soloist on this great piece. So it's sort of a concerto grosso, if you will. It's a chance to hear many instruments featured. We're going to open, since that piece features the winds and timpani, we're going to open with one of the other families of the orchestra, with the strings, an incredible work, the string orchestra version of the Bela Bartok Romanian folk dances, and then we're sort of bringing this all to a head in full-on celebration of the symphony with Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique. The next concert is on classics, will be in January, and this is when finally you start seeing Sunday and Tuesdays combining for a bit because of the Beethoven cycle that I told you about. And as we move on, you will start hearing more and more about the Beethoven cycle and the Beethoven celebration. But there you go. We're going to open with Beethoven Symphony No. 6. It should be obvious that we're not going to do them in numerical order. We're going to do sort of the correct combination of 3 per year. So we're going to open with Beethoven 6, which is known as the Pastoral Symphony. It's really one of the first really tone poem-esque symphonies in which Beethoven is telling quite a story through the symphony. In fact, a favorite movement of mine in this is the storm that happens in the middle, and he creates the perfect thunderstorm musically. We open with Mozart Overture to Don Giovanni, and then Jennifer Frautschi is going to play the Brahms Violin Concerto. Jennifer is a phenomenal violinist, and so many members of the orchestra have actually recommended her to me, and it just so happened that I was guest conducting another orchestra this past fall, the Arkansas Symphony, and Jennifer was my soloist. So I got to meet her out there. We did a concerto together. We realized how incredibly well we got along personally and musically, and immediately I wanted to get her here to Portland. So it's nice too because Jennifer lives down in the Boston area, so it's almost like being home for her. She's almost sort of one of ours anyway. So that's going to be an awesome concert, the kickoff of the Beethoven cycle. The next one is, it's a concert that has the Beethoven cycle on it. You see this time it's Beethoven 3, Eroica. The Third Symphony of Beethoven is one of the most important symphonies in music history because this is really the moment that many of us musicians will point to say this is when the classical era began to give way to the Romantic era, right at the Beethoven Third Symphony. If you listen to, and you hopefully will in the next few years, Beethoven Symphonies 1 or 2, you will hear that they could be called, at some level, Mozart Symphony 42 and 43. They could be the next symphonies that Mozart might have written, or perhaps Haydn. They're very classical, sort of art in structure and in form. The Third Symphony, Beethoven begins to depart, and it's incredibly obvious, the departure. It's such a powerful work, and I think you'll enjoy that move from classical to romantic. There's a piece on there that also shows a move in music, and that was the move from jazz, from Tin Pan Alley, into the concert hall. And I did the math wrong. At first, I found myself thinking, this is unbelievable, because it was in February of 1924 that George Gershwin walked onto the stage and with the Paul Whiteman Band took on this new experiment in music, and for the first time a jazz concerto emerged, his Rhapsody in Blue. And the story of Rhapsody in Blue is great, and part of the story is that Gershwin had a brief conversation with Whiteman about 6 months before this event on the street. He ran into Whiteman on the street, and Whiteman said, I'd like you to write a concerto for this big experiment in music I'm doing. Gershwin said yes, promptly forgot about it, and he and his brother, Ira, were in a pool hall about 2.5 weeks before the performance date, and Ira was reading the paper, and the paper said, announcement, great concert in music to feature new concerto by George Gershwin. And George went running to the nearest telephone and called Whiteman. He had forgotten all about it. until that moment. And they talked, and Whiteman really pushed him to come up with something, and he said, well, I don't think I can give you a full concerto in 2.5 weeks, but maybe I can write a Rhapsody. And there's the Rhapsody in Blue. I said I did the math wrong because I thought, this is fantastic. It was exactly 90 years ago, but when it's this time, it will be 91 years. So I'm slightly off, but this happened 1 year before the Strand Amateur Orchestra happened. So we're really sort of doing this quite well. Kevin Cole is one of the preeminent interpreters of Gershwin playing today. I have just recently done the Rhapsody in Blue with Kevin, and you're going to, I think, really be awed by his playing. He also puts back into the Rhapsody about 150 bars which were taken out, which Gershwin played originally, and then were taken out when they published the work, simply because in that day and age of publishing sheet music, which was everyone wanted sheet music back then, the publishers felt like that they had too many pages, and they couldn't sell that many pages. So they convinced Gershwin to cut out about 150 bars. Kevin has replaced all of those bars, and it's really nice to hear the piece exactly as it was played back then. Also, I'm excited to announce that we are going to be giving details soon about a young American composition competition, if you will. Details are forthcoming, but as one way of celebrating the 90th anniversary, both its history and the future of music, we wanted to make sure we have a new piece that is part of the Portland Symphony legacy. So we are going to be putting out the word to the top graduate schools and the composer online associations around the country, and reaching out to composers under the age of 30, and we are going to pick one who will be the winner, and we will commission him or her to write an opening work, and we are going to ask him to be somewhat inspired by Portland, him or her. And how they choose to be inspired will be up to them, but we're going to ask them to be inspired by Portland and let the new work have something of the flavor of Portland. How you work, lobster in, I don't know, but something like that is going to happen. So that's the second part of the Beethoven cycle, the February concerts. This is a concert coming up in March that I am so thrilled about. We've talked for quite a while about the Portland Symphony Orchestra doing concert version or semi-staged version of opera, and wanted to make sure that we did not do an opera that, for example, our dear friends at Port Opera would do. So we wouldn't do a concert version of Carmen or La Boheme or Madame Butterfly or something like that. We have been able to secure an incredible cast of singers, and the singers from the Choral Arts Society and our orchestra, of course, to perform a semi-staged version of Francois Poulenc's Dialogues of the Carmelites. The Dialogues of the Carmelites was written in 1956. It is one of my personal, very favorite operas. It has the most powerful ending, if you want my opinion, just about in all of opera. It's a true story about Carmelitan nuns who, during the course of the French Revolution, when the revolt turned against not only nobility but excesses of the church, these Carmelitan nuns were all sent to the guillotine. The story actually follows one woman, a young woman named Blanche de la Force, and Blanche is the lead character, and soprano. That will be portrayed by Sarah Jane McMahon. If you saw us perform Samuel Barber's Knoxville Summer of 1915 a few years ago, Sarah Jane was the soprano for that. So we're bringing Sarah Jane back to sing the role of Blanche. Blanche is the daughter of a family of some means, and she has a strong desire to join the Carmelite order, and she does so. Her father and her brother have concerns about her doing this. The father is portrayed by Troy Cook, who has been with us on a number of occasions, and by Daniel Stein, an incredible tenor, who did sing with us once for the Bach St. John Passion. They have concerns, but she goes and begins joining the order. Her closest friend is Constance, a wonderful soprano named Catherine Mueller, who sings in the group Seraphic Fire, which is a Baroque specialty group, is going to sing the role of Constance. And she moves into the order The other roles you see are some of the important members of the Carmelite order. Jill Gardner is going to be Madame Lidouin. I've worked with Jill many times before. She just actually finished singing on Il Trittico at an opera company that I heard, and she's just the most incredible singer. Mary Gail Green will sing the Old Prioress, which is a very dramatic role. And then we have a few more roles will come locally. So she's in the order, and then the revolution is moving closer and closer, frankly, to the nunnery. And her father forces her out and gets her to leave when the nuns are going to be guillotined. The scene at the end has the crowd watching the public execution, the nuns singing an Ave Regina, and one by one leaving the stage. And Poulenc writes into the score, he writes the actual sound into the score and the voices obviously diminish until there's only one voice left. It's Constance, who is ready to take her turn, and Blanche, who has been taken away from the order, returns, hugs her friend Constance, and they walk together and both go to their fate. It's so powerful. The music is some of the best writing, I think, of the 20th century, and incredible singing. It will be done in French with super titles, so you can read every bit of it if your French isn't fluent as we go through. So you can tell I'm sort of overwhelmingly excited that we're able to pull this off and to make this happen. It's going to be, I think, a really marquee event for us at the Portland Symphony. The next concert features again one of our own. Charles Dimmick is going to play the Bartok Violin Concerto. This is the only concert on the Tuesday or Sunday classical series next year that I will not be able to conduct, and we are close to naming a guest conductor, but we didn't quite have the ink to the pen and wanted to just hold off. So we'll be announcing the guest conductor soon. But Charles Dimmick, our concertmaster, is going to play the Bartok Concerto for Violin. We're going to open the concert with the Haydn Symphony No. 90. Get it? Number 90? Okay, good. Opening with Haydn Symphony No. 90, Bartok, and then once we have secured the guest conductor, we want that person to be able to have, I know this as a guest conductor myself, I want to feel very, very strong and confident in the works that I'm conducting, and we want to give this person that ability. So that's the concert coming up in the end of March. And then we have one last concert and on both subscription seasons, the Sunday and the Tuesday final classics for both series is Beethoven 7. And so the three that we're doing in the first year, Beethoven 6, Beethoven 3, and Beethoven 7, are the three Beethoven symphonies you'll hear next year. Beethoven 7 is maybe the most major keyed positive of all of his symphonies, and I think perfect for springtime. But we want to juxtapose that with a work by Kurt Weill, Seven Deadly Sins. I am a huge fan of Kurt Weill. I actually, early in my career, worked for a while for the Kurt Weill Foundation in New York City. I was working primarily editing an opera of his called Street Scene, but I had the chance to get to know this unbelievable work, which calls for female soloists, also a small quartet of male vocalists, and orchestra. And Storm Large is going to be our soloist. Now, this is a great story. Storm Large does not come from the classical world at all. If you have heard of her, and I encourage you to YouTube her or Google her, you will find that she has an amazing story. She had a not great childhood. She's written a very wonderful autobiography. She had a sort of a stormy childhood, pardon the pun, and she moved into the world of rock as a singer. She was very involved in punk rock. She was involved in sort of, garage band rock and roll. She made a name for herself in that. She moved to Portland, Oregon, and got very involved in sort of the Nirvana-type Seattle, Portland rock scene. But while there, she began to meet some classical musicians, and she happened to meet a group of singers called Pink Martini, a band. You may have heard of Pink Martini. Wonderful fusion group. They fuse classical and jazz, and this group of Pink Martini will have saxophone and electric guitar and African drums and cello and violin. It's a really wonderful mix. And she started singing with Pink Martini. So at times she tours with Pink Martini, and she began learning more about the classical world. And fast forward to last spring, when she debuted in the violed Seven Deadly Sins with the Detroit Symphony, with Leonard Slatkin conducting at Carnegie Hall. So it's really an amazing journey. And the reviews of her Seven Deadly Sins at Carnegie Hall were just incredible, and we were so excited then to get her to come do it here. So this is going to be a great concert on so many levels, and I think, by the way, this is going to help us reach a larger swath of our community, people who will know her from other walks of her life who will come to hear the Seven Deadly Sins. I'm going to ask you not to press connect to the very next one yet. So that's how the Sunday and Tuesday classical series sort of size up. But it's the 90th anniversary, and we really wanted to do something very special for the 90th anniversary. So we have one more concert, and the concert's actually going to happen at my birthday, so I'm happy about that personally. But to celebrate the 90th anniversary, we kicked around a lot of ideas. Do we bring in a large, sort of a superstar guest artist? And we kept going back to the orchestra. Focus on the orchestra. Focus on Portland. Focus on this organization. Someone, and it wasn't me, I think it was John Tanzer. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was John Tanzer, our timpanist. Someone brought up the fact that maybe it would be a neat idea to bring folks who have been involved with our symphony over the past years together. And specifically, how many previous music directors are still out there? Well, it turns out there are 3. Last night, I had a great event in my own life. I made my conducting debut with the Chicago Symphony. And after the concert, I went backstage. Thank you. After the concert, I went off the stage, and there was a man standing there who, to my eyes, I would say, you couldn't convince me that he had hit his 70th birthday. He looked so incredibly fit and young, and he said, Maestro, I don't know if you knew that I was coming tonight, but I live here in Chicago. I'm Paul Vermel. And I said, Maestro Vermel, of course. It was so great to see him. So on this concert, on May the 2nd, 2015, Paul Vermel, Bruce Hangen, and Toshi Shimada are all coming back to town. All 3 of them are conducting, as well as me. We're going to open the concert with Paul conducting the Egmont Overture, Maestro Vermel, I should say, and then Bruce Hangen, Maestro Hangen, is going to conduct the Respighi Fountains of Rome. As of a phone call to Toshi about 5 minutes before 5 o'clock, we're still working on which work that Maestro Shimada is going to conduct, but Toshi will round out the first half of the concert. Then there will be intermission, and after intermission, we will conduct one of the greatest powerhouse works for orchestra, and I'll conduct that with the orchestra, the Strauss Also sprach Zarathustra. So I really think, I'm so happy to watch your faces, which I was doing very carefully as I just announced that, because I think we did it right. I think you seem to be pleasantly excited and surprised about that. So I'm so glad to see. I think this is going to give us a great weekend to celebrate the Portland Symphony Orchestra past, present, and future. And to see these 3 gentlemen together is going to be really quite something. So save the date. That's not on subscription. That's a single ticket purchase. That's a gala purchase. And I would heartily recommend making sure you and tell your friends to get your tickets early, because I think this will be one of the biggest successes and sellouts we've probably ever had at the Portland Symphony Orchestra. So moving on, we are announcing also today our pop season for next year, our pop season for next year is 4 concerts that we're finding that we have had just great success celebrating more and more the music of the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. The opening pops is so obviously the 70s, a group that formed officially in 1972 and officially broke up in 1982, so very much the decade of disco, and I think hardly any band defines the 70s and discos more than this group. So this wonderful group is going to do a salute to ABBA. I actually just happened to see this concert out west about a month ago, and it's you were going to want to like put on clothing just like that and stand up and disco dance. It's an incredibly fun concert. So that's how we're opening, music of ABBA. Second Pops concert is the music of two other incredible artists, Elton John and Billy Joel. This is a concert called The Piano Men. I've had the great pleasure of conducting this concert before down in North Carolina, but look closely at the lead singer and the star of the show, Joe Boucher. Our very own Joe Boucher is going to be in this. So let me ask Joe if you will. Joe is here, so if you'll stop, running my microphone for a second, and you take over and tell them about this. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how the dressing room is going to work for the gala with 4 music directors here.
Well, Toshi, there's only one called name.
That's true.
Toshi gets the Toshi Shimada
right.
dressing room.
Thank you very much. My name is Joe Boucher. I've been working for the Portland Symphony Orchestra for the past 8 seasons. I'm also not from the classical world. I'm a rock musician, and this show was created because I was inspired by the work that I was doing with the Portland Symphony in the ways that classical music has influenced rock and roll music. We've got the Beatles concert, which is coming up in May, and that's the best example of how rock music and classical music have come together. And I think probably second best would be what Billy Joel and Elton John have been able to do by incorporating classical elements into rock and roll in a really dynamic and vibrant, high-energy way. So we'll have fun.
Thanks, Joe. And
Thanks.
Joe and I are I'm slightly older, slightly only, but I'm slightly older than Joe, but we're of similar vintage. We're sort of both children and teenagers of the exact same era. And no one knows more about 70s and 80s trivia on this planet than Joe Boucher. And who knows, we might work that into the concert. But Joe is, if you haven't heard this, you will see, Joe is an incredibly gifted pianist and singer, and his band is phenomenal, and we're really excited to put this together with the PSO. So that's the second Pops concert. The third Pops concert is a big band salute, so we're going to a very different decade. Instead of the 70s or 80s, we're really moving back to the 30s and 40s. Rich Ridenauer is one of the great pianists and big band sort of performers out there today, and that's a great musical family, Rich Ridenauer. And this will be the night for music of, as you see, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Spike Jones, Lawrence Welk, etc. So if this wonderful type of big band and jazz is your thing, and it's kind of nice because we have this happening in February and also the Rhapsody in Blue. So February, around that time of the 91st anniversary of jazz entering the concert hall, we're having a great amount of fun with big band and swing and jazz. So that's our third Pops concert. And the final Pops concert is not a salute to anyone, but it's the actual item. Judy Collins is coming to sing. I had the great chance to hear her just last year, and she sounds like $1,000,000. She's just, if you are a fan of Both Sides Now or Ascend in the Clowns or so many of her great songs, she really is a legendary singer, up there along with James Taylor and Carly Simon and the rest. And so we're so excited that she'll be the sort of the star headliner of our Pops concert series. So 4 Pops concerts over the course of next year. Something from the 70s, something from the 80s, something from the 40s, and then Judy Collins, who really is timeless in many ways. Any questions about the Pops series? Yes?
I make a comment that I saw Joe Boucher do this show at the State Theater a couple of years ago
Yeah.
with the Southern Maine Symphony Orchestra, and it was absolutely outstanding.
It was the video of that concert that got me to hire him with another orchestra, and I think that's what sent you to stardom. So it was that concert. So that's exactly right. We do have the Magic of Christmas, of course. It will be the 35th anniversary of the Magic of Christmas, and we had such great reports and such great reviews and feedback from this past year's Magic. I feel so good about what's happening with the Magic of Christmas over the past few years. We're on an incredible growth trajectory, and what a wonderful thing to say about a concert cycle that is now in its 35th year. We will be telling you, as I said at the beginning, more details about the Magic of Christmas and more details about our Discovery concerts in the coming weeks and months. The Discovery concerts, I should just say that the success of the Discovery concerts has exceeded my wildest expectations. We had one Discovery concert 2 years ago, one Discovery concert last year. We have 3 Discovery concerts this year, and that is our intention for years to come. And thus far, every single Discovery concert has been a sellout. Our new assistant conductor is here, Norman Nguyen. Norman just conducted the Peter and the Wolf Discovery concert 2 days ago on Sunday. And just stand up so everyone can see you. And Norman and our education director, Rose Koo, are working absolutely overtime to make sure that we're reaching kids and reaching the community with great concerts like this. I want to tell you some of the things we're planning. Norman and I were just talking today, but I will bite my tongue and hold off until we get to the announcement of the Discovery Series. But a lot of great concerts. And I should mention there's one more Discovery concert coming up this year. It's in the spring, and it is Harry Potter and the Magic of Music. I'll be conducting that concert. And Lynn Dillies, who was the featured magician on the Magic of Christmas year before last, is coming back for the Discovery concert and going to make me appear or disappear, one of the two, I don't know, and has a lot of great illusions as well. Know that the orchestra also engages youth in a myriad of ways. We do so through our kinder concerts. These are concerts where ensembles, smaller ensembles, so brass quintet, percussion ensemble, string quintet, etc., go into the schools, and 35 or 40-minute concerts, and they reach preschoolers through early, mid-elementary school age kids all around the region. Those are available, and if you ever want to learn more about them, or if you know of a school or a group of students that would like these concerts, just contact the orchestra and speak with Rose Koo. She can give you all the information you need. Our youth concerts, we do these in the fall and in the spring, and this is when kids a little bit older than the kinder concert, usually later elementary to early middle school kids, we pack out Merrill Auditorium a couple of times during the day, and we give them 45 or 50-minute concerts. And that's probably, for many, many kids, the first time they ever see a full symphony orchestra, a live symphony orchestra. It's really important. My first memories as myself of seeing an orchestra were in the 4th grade in South Carolina seeing a youth concert. So I can't tell you how important that process is for the symphony. Classical concerts, pops concerts, education concerts, our Discovery concerts for kids, one amazing gala, Magic of Christmas. That's the 2014-15 season. Hope you like it.